Welcome everyone. How you guys doing on this beautiful Saturday evening? Shout out to each and everyone. Shout out to all the people out there who doing their thing. Big up yourself. Shout out to all the gardeners out there who doing their thing. Shout out to all the people who facing this drought and able to pull through it. I know this drought ain't no joke. It's really serious, man. I mean, certain areas you're not getting no rain. And Eddie May as well, what's up, sis? How you doing? Good to see you. What's going on? Yes, welcome. Happy Saturday. Appreciate you here. Yes, guys. So the drought is, man, a lot of people is screaming about the drought. All right, that's good. That's good. Good to see you. Yes. So a lot of people are screaming about the drought because the heat, like for the past 2 days, not the past 2 days, the past 2 weeks, for the past 2 weeks, I've been actually dealing with 90 degrees. I see it reach up to 100 degrees today. And I was in the garden and it was burning. And when I look at the plants, them, and I see the plants, them, and I see they still holding on, even though there's so much heat. And I'm not wetting them, they still holding on. I went in the midday, and in the midday is when, if you really want to know how your plants them doing, you can go midday, because midday heat is when the heat is on its prime, is when the heat is blazing. So if you there in your garden and you see the heat is blazing and your plants them leaf only looking laid on, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. But if you go in there and you realize that the leaf them is laying down and start turning yellow, yes, that's when you know your plants them ain't doing well. But also you can go in the morning. If you go in the morning, you're gonna see the plants them looking beautiful, and also in the evening. But in the midday, in that burning sun, once you see them leaves start turning yellow, you got to start thinking what to do next. All right, guys. So today's topic is: should we do a separate herb garden, or should we just mix up the plants them? Like plants home between different plants. Someone asked me this question, and when you don't, you see, if you have space, if you have the space, you could do a lot of things. If you have the space, you could do your own separate herb garden. You could have your area where you just planting peppers. You could have your area where you just planting okra. You could separate it because you have the space. But when you don't have the space, it's a whole different situation. If you have small space, it's a different situation. If you have a small space, the honest truth is you don't really need a separate herb garden. You don't need a separate herb garden. What you could do, what you could do, you could take different herbs and plant them in different areas between different plants. So like you have pepper growing here, you could put a couple of herbs with the pepper. You have okra growing, you could put a couple of herbs with the okra. You could space it out. You have a mango tree in a container growing, you could stock 3, 4 herbs in that container. You have fruit trees growing, stock some herbs within the containers then. You don't really need to create a separate garden for your herbs. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you limited with space, when you're limited with space, you have to figure out how to place the herbs them in different areas, in different containers, in your raised bed, in different areas. You place the herbs them that grows with plants that grows like the same size with them. Sometimes the fruit trees, say for instance, you have a fruit tree growing in a container. Now the container for the fruit tree supposed to be big enough. So what you can do, you can place a few herbs in that same container in your raised bed. You can stick herbs all around in your raised bed. So what is happening there? It's allowing you to place your herbs them in different area without have to think about creating a space just for your herbs them. Like I now mentioned, if you have the space, it's okay. You can do whatever. But when your space is limited, because put it this way, you might want to plant pepper, you want to plant okra, you want to plant tomatoes, you want to plant different type of plants. Now, these different type of plants, some of them need to be, you can't plant the tomato with the pepper because sometimes the tomato start running and it might run up on the pepper and start shading the pepper. Okra, you don't want to plant the okra too close to the pepper or too close to the tomato because everything needs space to spread. But guess what? You could plant mint close to your okra. You could plant oregano close to your pepper. Yes, so you could plant a lot of different plants by the root of these plants. Because guess what? These plants gonna get big. These plants gonna get big and they get taller, so now it have room. The sun will able to hit the herbs, and then a lot of these herbs adds a lot of nutrients to your soil. A lot of these herbs that you grow add a lot of nutrients. So you could put turmeric between your peppers. So instead of you have to create a space just for turmeric, you could place them in different areas. Your ginger, you could place them in different areas because you don't have enough space. And once you don't have enough space, you really don't have to create a separate herb garden. All you got to do, place different herbs in different areas, also in different containers. So at the end of the day, by the time you place these herbs in different areas, in different containers, you have a lot of herbs. You definitely have a lot of herbs growing. But when you have the space, it's a lot different. Now you could plant your whole separate herb garden. You could plant your separate place where you grow in your tomatoes. You could plant your separate place where you grow in because you have that space. This is for the people who have limited space. So when you have limited space, you got to figure out how you can get the chance to grow a lot. So instead of you have one little area and you trying to create a herb garden, just a herb garden, then you don't have no room to grow other things. What all you got to do, plant out your plants and choke the herbs by the roots. Because the thing of it, some of these herbs don't grow at all. So they're not gonna create any situation for the bigger plant. Meanwhile, they adding nutrients to the soil, helping the bigger plant. So it's important. It's something to think about, guys. Remember what I said. If you have space, you can do whatever you want. You can have all different type of plants in different area. But when you have limited space, you have to know how to plan that you're able to harvest many different things. Plan, like I know was mentioning, make big containers. So when you make big containers, you could plant 3, 4, 5 different herbs in one container, even with a fruit tree. So you don't need to create, if you don't have the space, create a separate herb garden. All you got to do, plant different things and place the herbs around in all the areas, in different containers. If you're growing it in raised bed, you could plant them in different areas in the raised bed. The thing about it too, guys, is a lot of things you could plant together. You could plant a lot of things together because I'm growing squash, tomato, pepper, all of them in the same area. But you have to take the time out to control the vines of the squash. You got to make sure you come and you reroute the vines. You got to make sure you come out and you reroute the vines from climbing over to the pepper. Even the tomato, you have to figure out how to keep them from tangling with each other. The next thing again, you'll be surprised how much squash you can grow together, allowing them to run on each other. You'll be surprised the production you can get. So this is the thing. Sometimes we believe that we have to plant certain plants separate. No, not really. There's a lot of these plants can grow together. Once you're able to get the sunlight, once these plants able to get the sunlight, you could grow them together. So you could grow different type of squash in the same area together, running upon each other. So for gardeners who have small space, these are things you could think about. You create a trail and allow them to run on each other. They will grow lovely. They will produce. All you got to make sure the sunlight is able to reach all of them. Okay? Now, I have a container and I'm growing lemongrass in the container. And as you know, lemongrass spread. Also, in that same container, I have oregano, I have mint, I have 4 different herbs in that same container with the lemongrass. Now we know the lemongrass spread. So what I do, I keep cutting the lemongrass, keep cutting it so it can give the other plants room. So there's a lot of plants you could grow together. You just got to be in charge and make sure that you do what you have to do to make sure that each plant get the sunlight they need and each plants get the water that they need. But there's a lot of plants you can grow together. Lots of plants you can grow together. And in these areas, you could also keep chucking your herbs them in between. So you chuck in the herbs in between. Once that herb able to get sunlight, it's gonna grow. So if you have small space, you really don't need to have a separate herb garden. Just place them in different areas. So you have room to grow your tomato, you have room to grow your pepper, you have room to grow what your collard greens, you have room to grow what you want to grow. But if you decide to just plant up the herb garden, it's eliminating space for other plants. But you could plant up your garden with other plants and still able to plant your herbs them between. Because like we know, many of these herbs don't grow too tall. And then at the end of the day, we keep harvesting the herb them so often, so they're not gonna get that tall, so they're not gonna bother the other plants. So what you do, you keep harvesting, and then the more you harvest, the more they grow. So don't make use of your space, make use of your small space. Make use. There's herbs could grow with a lot of different plants. Herbs could grow with fruit trees. Herb could grow with tomato. Herb could grow with pepper. Herb could grow with okra. Herb could grow with collard greens. Herb could grow with cabbage. They can grow with basically any plant. Just give them the opportunity to able to get that sunlight. Once they're able to get the sunlight, and guess what? The next thing again, most of these herbs does not like hot sun. So planting them between other plants also giving them, creating a shade for them, and that's where they do better. Just like I'm looking at on my mango tree, under my mango tree, I have like 5 different herbs growing under my mango tree. And the herbs them is beautiful. If you see how healthy they looking. That mango tree is actually shading these herbs and keeping them from that burning sun. So they're doing well. So this is for the people who have small space. You don't have to create a separate herb garden. You could plant many different things. Many different things and add herbs in between them. And it works. It definitely works because let me tell you something, guys. I have a herb garden, a separate herb garden. I mean, I have a space, so I could do that. I have a separate herb garden, but even though I have a separate herb garden, I have many different things growing in the herb garden. I have cucumber growing in the garden. I have squash growing in the garden. I have eggplant growing in the garden. I have uh, different plants. I have pepper growing in the herb garden. So, and because the reason for that was I wanted to see how the plants thrive with the herbs. I wanted to see that. And the result is amazing because many of these herbs add nutrients to the soil. Many of them add a lot of nutrients. Some of them add minerals to our soil. So sometimes you chop them in between and you know a plant that is really good to plant with other plant like tomato. A good plant to plant with tomato is mint. Mint is a very good plant to plant with tomato because mint It enhances the taste of your tomato. Mince, try mince in your tomato. It enhances the taste. It make it taste different. It make it give that brilliant taste. You also could try it like with your kale, like how you eat in the leaf with the kale. Try mint with your kale. Mint is a good plant because you see how the mint is poking. It's a beautiful plant to plant with other plants that you eat the leaf or you eat the fruits. Beautiful. Any type of mint. But like I saying, guys, like I'm saying, it's important really important to you know how to utilize the space you have. It's very important to know how to utilize the space you have because you could grow a lot in a small space. You could grow a whole lot in a small space. I create a raised bed. The raised bed is about 2 feet wide, 3 feet wide, and about 15 feet in length. So, so 3 by 15, that's 45. So that's 45 square feet I'm talking about, right? And in that 45 square feet, I'm growing over 100 different type of plants within that 45 square feet. 100 different type of plants. Most of them is herbs, different type of herbs. I also have a few flowers inside of it. I also have pepper inside of it, eggplant inside of it, ginger, turmeric. So in that small area, you would not believe the amount I'm actually able to grow in that area. So basically, what I'm saying is, you could mix up. If you say, for instance, you have a 45 square foot or a 50 square foot area to grow into, and you want to grow different things. You want to grow the herbs, you want to grow the tomato, you want to grow pepper, you want to grow your collards, but you only have 45 square feet. What I'll say to you, I'll plant the pepper in a little area, the collard green in a little area, the tomato in a little area, and then what you do, you start placing your herbs them in between them. They will able to shade the herbs, and also the herbs will able to give them nutrients at the same time. So now this plant will be shading the herb because we all know herb does not love hot sun. If you notice, if you notice, when you see the herb start coming up, you start see the herb start coming up only in the spring. And after the spring, what start happening? What start happening in the spring? They start flourishing. And after the flourishing, when the summer come, you see they slow down and their growth. They start produce the way they were in the spring. Why? Because these herbs prefer the cooler weather. They do better in the colder weather. So say for instance, you plant them between these different plants gonna end up shade them. So you might stand a chance of able to have more harvest from them. So don't be scared to plant them between. Instead of creating a one herb garden and can't plant anything else, what you do, you plant the other stuff and then you place your herbs in between. This is very important. So, guys, don't worry if you don't have a big space. If you have a space 20 square feet, 30 square feet, you can grow a lot. You just got to know. All right, because in container garden, you could go squash in container garden. All you got to do is create like a trail for keep them. Sometimes you could even have them underground, but you have them going in circles. So instead of they running everywhere, you putting it in circles. So they go in around, you make a circle. So they're gonna continue going around in the circle. You could also grow a cantaloupe if you feel like. You could grow that too. You do the same thing. You put them and you allow them to run in circle. So they're not gonna take up too much space. Or you create a little trail for them. Right? Now you able to plant your herbs them because you control these vines. Squash, you could grow squash as well. You just got to control the vines. And once you control the vines, know you have space. Other things like whatever you want, pepper, the herbs them you decide to grow, whatever. Say for instance, you want to grow them in container, you could actually get the container big enough and deep enough that you could plant several in the same container. You see what I'm saying? So not because you have small space, you can do a lot in small space. Believe it or not. It's just you just gotta know how to utilize your space. You just gotta know, and you just gotta know the things you could grow. But you basically could grow anything in a small space, anything you want. You just got to be in control of the vines, the running, cucumber. You know they're gonna need a little trail. You create a little trail for them, and then cucumber produce for a while. Then when the heat comes on, they start, you know, they start drying out. But they produce squash as well. Some of them produce for a long period of time, especially if there's no bugs messing with them. But what I'm saying is, you can grow a lot in small spaces. All right? Be creative. Think about what you want to grow and make it happen. All right? But what the topic is, do you have to create a separate herb garden? No, you don't. Because you could mix the plants them. You could do companion planting with your herbs them. Meaning you planting different plants with your herbs. Again, if you have the space, you could do whatever you want. But if your space is limited, you could choke. Say you have 20 herbs you want to plant, you could choke them in different containers or you could choke them in different areas around different plants. So at the end of the day, you get your herbs is growing, you're able to grow your collard greens, you're able to grow your pepper, you're able to grow your tomato. Instead of just growing one herb garden and cannot grow other things. You see what I'm saying? So how you doing, guys? Thank you guys for coming out, man. I appreciate you guys. Thank you all for all the support. I just wanted to do this video because someone asked me this question today, and if someone asks me this question, maybe other people is asking the same question too. So I just do this live that I can get this information out. You don't have to grow a separate herb garden. You can do companion planting. You can mix the herbs with other plants. You could plant herbs in by the root of your fruit trees. All these type of thing you can do. Whether you have them in container, whether you have them in ground, you can definitely plant herbs by the root. So your space is limited. You can grow herbs by the root of other plant. If you have the space, you can grow them wherever you like. You see what I'm saying? So this is basically for the people who growing in small spaces. So thank you guys again for coming out. I appreciate each and every one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell. So every time I'm going live, you'll be able to get the update. And don't forget, guys, the next update for the Plant a Herb Garden Challenge is the 25th of this month. Let's get it going, guys. Let's get it going. And on the 30th, we definitely gonna be doing that giveaway. So on the 30th, we're gonna know the people who win prizes. All right. So I just want to say again, thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate you all. Peace, love, and blessing to each and everyone. All right. Good night. Happy gardening.